guys, welcome to the new video tutorial on Angular for the beginners. So in the last video tutorial we guys have understand what are the basic project structures and the folder structures available in Angular project. Now in this video we are going to be understand what are the bindings in Angular, okay, how to use this binding and what are the different types of bindings we will have. Well, when it comes to the Angular is uses for the dynamic web content website applications. Well, to put the data in a dynamic way, we should have that data in a backend file. And as per the project structure that we have understand, the backend file stored in the TypeScript file of that same component applications. So we have two respective views so far. One view of that component is .html file where we are going to put our HTML code, and one view of that is .component.ts file where our backend data is got stored. Now the concept of binding is what is to connect our backend to our HTML. So if I have certain information that is stored in my backend in the form of variables, that may be a variable or a array or a something that I wanted to show through my applications, well, I'm going to write it here, that information, and using some binding concept and HTML syntax of an Angular, I'm going to put that data right here. That is so called as the binding. And when it comes to the Angular, there are three ways to perform this binding. One is using interpolation. So what is that interpolations and all we are going to be understand. Other is using property bindings, and one more way is available, that is two-way binding. For two-way binding it will require time, so we are going to cover in our next video tutorial, but these two concepts we are going to use it right here. So what is Angular interpolation? Angular interpolation means there is a data that we got created into that component TypeScript file. So data might be of any, like let us say I have to create a variable. So here one variable is got generated, title, and having my first app. So let us say I have to create other variable, like I just wanted to create a variable called as let us say name. Those belongs to string, so you have to write it. Okay, the main benefit of using this kind of codes are what is to create your data in efficient format. So in Angular, whenever you are creating a variable, after the name of variable you should have to write a colon and the type of variable right there. So after the double quote I am going to just write as LeadSoft Placement Academy. And now what I wanted to do, I have to show this information to my HTML format. So I just wanted to show, I don't want to do any single changes. Then using the string interpolation, that could be possible. How it would be, let us take, I wanted to show the information in h3 tag. So I'm going to write a h3, and in between the content you can use anywhere with the string interpolation syntax. What is the string interpolation syntax I'm continuously talking all about? The string interpolation means you can use just this double opening bracket and close curly bracket, and in between this here you can write that name of variable or the array or the object that we wanted to show in the HTML format. So here what is the variable name we got created? Name as the variable name. So I'm going to use that name as a variable name right here. Now let us save my file. My application is already building. I have put it on a server, and now you guys can check in the output. So LeadSoft Placement Academy will came in picture. So this is what the string interpolation, and it is uses to put that data from your backend, that is what TypeScript file, to the HTML code. Likewise, let us say I have to show the images. So in the images sections also the same thing can be possible. Let us say I have to take some data, like I wanted to show our logo. So I'm just going to search for it, and here let us say this data I have to show on my screen. So I'm just going to copy that address. I'm just copied the link address, and here we are going to paste it. So what I'm going to do, as we know, to put an image we required the image tag, but instead of writing that source right here, I'm going to create here a variable called as image source. that of in string data type, and inside the value I'm going to paste the link. So this is the link. I hope this would works because we don't have any extension so far, but we are going to check with this. Alright, so let me open this link right here. So no, it's not available. So let us take any single example, like let us put an angular image we are going to put it. So let us say this image we want. Right, I just right click, open the image in new tab, and yes, this is there with an extension. So this data I wanted to put right there. So I'm going to replace with this images format. Right, so let us save data. So string variable we got created as image source, and now we have to assign that image with that data. So I'm going to say image, okay, source equals to, again in interpolation I'm going to put that name, that is image source, and then we are going to write some height and width to that. So I just say width equals to, let us say it as 50%, and the height is also I'm going to put it as just 30%. All right, now let us save and get back here. This is where we are, and you guys can see the output will become a picture. So this is how the string interpolation that you can use to print the data to any paragraph or heading tags or anything, like let us say I have written the anchor tag. So for an anchor, I'm going to create one more variable. Let us say a variable called as anchor button of, again, string data type, and I'm going to hold the value as remove. The value is what? Remove. Now this value I wanted to show it in HTML of anchor tag. So here after this I'm going to start with anchor and just say href equals to nothing, that is hash, and instead of this, by writing the name here, you can start with the string interpolation and put that name as, what is the name of variable? Anchor button. Alright, now let's save. Now you guys can see it will comes with remove. If you can change the data, let us say here instead of remove I just wanted to write edit. Now I will save and you get back here. So that dynamic content from your backend, that is what the TypeScript file to the HTML, can be shown very easily. So this is the Angular interpolation is uses to make our content of web application to be dynamic. Now let us say I have to do the same process but using the property I have to make it. And well, in that case, the property bindings will comes in picture. Okay, property binding means what? Let us say I just take one single example. So I'm going to remove all these things so far. So this is just string interpolation I'm going to put it. So I have to write the image tag. So let us say I have to write the image tag, and I don't want to use the source value with the interpolation. I don't want to use the source value with the interpolation, and I wanted to bind that property with any of variable that is available in my TypeScript file. So on this variable I have to assign this. Now to make that done, what you can do is you can convert this normal property of HTML to the property binding of Angular. And what are the ways to do with this? Whatever that property that you wanted to change, you can keep it in a opening and closing square bracket, and then simply here you can write that name of variable. Okay, what is the name of variable? Image source without string interpolation. What if I wanted to update the height and width also? So for them, again I am going to create the variable. Let us say width as of integer, and their value I'm going to put it as like 350, and the height again in integer, and their value, okay, integer don't have data type here, you should have to use number, or integer, float and double value. So you can utilize a number data type, and let us say here 400. Now I have to assign that height and width along with property binding. So the property of that width as width here, right? That is the name of variable we got created in TypeScript, and the property of height is the height. So that same height and width is going to take for that attributes here. Let us check with that. So you guys can see if I'm going to inspect with this element. So let us inspect and check with that for entire image. Okay, here we are. So this is the app root, and inside the app root we have this image. So you guys can see whatever the value we have said, that is 350 in pixels and 400 in pixels, are getting assigned to that image. If you wanted to write any alternative name, that is alt property, so here I'm just going to create alternate of the string, and I'm just going to put that value as angular image. All right, now let us use this here to the ELT property binding. So as the name of property is ELT, and if I wanted to bind that property with angular value, so I should have to use what? Opening closing square bracket, and the name of property is ELT equals to that alternate, or what is the name of variable? Alternate only we got created. Now let us save this and see the changes. Okay, in this HTML, so in this inspect once I did, so in that ALT it will automatically comes with angular image. In the source it will comes from that variable. Width and height also will comes from the variable. So this is the basic concept for building your data in dynamical way. So if you wanted to utilize it for any number of applications, or you wanted to repeat it, then using some directives and that part of property bindings and interpolation, we can able to put data. Moreover, what is so important right here when it comes to the interpolation kind of concepts, or when it comes to the property binding of concept, is we are utilizing our backend data. Means I have created in my backend and I just utilize them in the HTML, and that is what the vice versa concept is available at two-way binding. What is the two-way binding says? The two-way binding says you can able to utilize the vice versa in a combination. Like I can take the data from backend and put it in a HTML, and also I can change the data from HTML, and whatever the changes we have made, that may perfectly seems to be assigned at the backend of our component file. That is the two-way binding concept, which we can able to take it in our next video tutorial. Now one more example that we are going to take it here, that I am going to create the buttons, and using some property of disabled, I'm going to make them disables right there. So for this example, I'm going to create 3 buttons. So I'm going to have 3 different values right here. So let's create these 3 different values. So let us say this is the button 1 of the boolean, and I'm going to set it to initially as a true. Then button 2 of this again boolean, I'm going to set it them to the false, and the button 3 of again boolean, and I'm going to set it them to the true. So I'm going to use all these boolean variables in my component.html file by having the disabled properties. So let us get back here. So I'm going to create 3 buttons. So let me create them as the type as button, and here we are going to put their names by in HTML. Let us say this is check 1. Okay, so same I'm going to be copied here, copied right there. So this is check 2 and check 3. So let's check with here in the output. So we have these 3 buttons, button 1, button 2, button 3. Now let us say I have to provide some CSS to them. So I just go to the component dot here, component.css. So for the button, I'm going to write first width as 120 pixels, okay, height as let us say 80 pixels. Again, what we are going to write, background color, I'm going to change them to the let us say this one, and the forecolor I'm going to change it to the black. And we are going to write some padding to make them distinguish. Let us say 10 pixel. Right, now let us check. Yes, it appears correctly. Now if I wanted to provide a margin from their right section, so I'm going to say margin at right section, let us say again 10 pixels. So this is how it will appear. So if you wanted to change the cursor, so you can change that cursor also, like cursor to the pointer. So these are the 3 buttons that we got created. Now the next thing that we are going to do, okay, all buttons are enabled. Okay, enabled and disabled we can't able to see due to this background. I'm going to remove this. Okay, now you guys can see all buttons are enabled. Now I have to work them with disabled options. Now as we got created some variables, you guys can see here button 1, button 2, button 3 with the boolean values. So in the component I'm going to use that disabled property. Okay, as it's property binding, So we should have to write them with the opening closing square bracket, and the properties were disabled. And what is the variable name? Let us say for first button I'm going to use button 1. Okay, now for second button, so again here I'm going to say disabled, and this is button 2. And for the third button I'm going to put here the disabled as button 3. Alright, now let us check with this. I'm going to save the code. Let us get back here. So you guys can see button 1, which is set initially true, was defaultly unchecked, and button 3 also defaultly unchecked, and button 2 is only checked. What if I'm going to say that let us change the value as this one is false, second is also false, and the last one is true. So two buttons are going to be enabled. Okay, let us get back here. So you guys can see these buttons are getting enabled, and this is how it will works. Why I have shown this example? Because in most of the e-commerce website where the Angular is uses, that add to cart payment options are going to set with the backend data. There itself the property bindings are supposed to be used and working with that applications like in this format. So this is how the string interpolations and the property bindings are used in this Angular. Let us revise them in a short. When it comes to the string bindings or any kind of bindings to the Angular, binding means what? Putting the data to our backend. When I say the backend, which means the TypeScript file, and showing them to the HTML content. And to make them show, when it comes to the string interpolation, you can use that double opening and closing curly brackets and the name of variable that we have uses in a TypeScript. And when it comes to the property binding, in the property binding, for that property you should have to use opening and closing square bracket and simply the name of variable without that opening and closing, what we can say, opening and closing the curly brackets. This is how we can done with the interpolation in Angular and the property binding in Angular. Well, in next upcoming videos we are going to check how we can able to perform the two-way bindings in Angular, and then upcoming video we are going to check with the Angular components and how to use with them in our respective scenarios. So if you guys have understand what is interpolation and what is the property binding in Angular, please give us the thumbs up. That will be a very big motivation for us. If you are new to our channel, kindly subscribe to our channel, share this video to the needful people. Thanks for watching this video. We will meet up soon.